Hello and welcome to an introduction to Balance Active, which is an innovative new programme to help regain and retain balance and function, and designed by physiotherapists in collaboration with engineers XEO Design.
So we are Rachel Smith, that's me speaking, and my colleague
Jayne Duffy.
And we're both HCPC registered physiotherapists. We've both got master's degree awards. And we've been doing physiotherapy for quite some time, so we've got a lot of clinical experience between us, and a lot of that latterly was in community settings, working really closely with our adult social care colleagues. And it was during that time as clinicians in the community that we started to get the idea of developing the Balance Active piece of equipment, and it was really focusing on optimising opportunities for people to be able to undertake rehab, but really importantly do normal functional activities in standing, and it really focused on people who've got balance and strength deficits, which obviously links really closely with people who are at risk of falling. So that's a little bit of a clinical background to Balance Active. So
Balance Active, there's a picture of it for you. You can see it's quite a straightforward piece of kit. It's simple, it's modular. We've designed it so it's lightweight, and it's featuring an adjustable forward knee support. So basically it's providing a low-tech, low-cost solution to facilitate active standing and balance for those who have got conditions affecting strength, balance and their ability to functionally stand. It's CE marked and as a Class 1 medical device, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about its component parts just in a second. So just so in a nutshell, really simple, light, low cost, multiple uses.
So a little bit more about Balance Active. There's the photograph there showing it kind of taken apart, so you can see it really packs relatively small. It only weighs 10 kilograms, which makes it really easy to transport to people's homes. It's easy to clean, so you've got a wipe clean knee block. You can wipe the uprights and stands, which means you can be used across multiple service users. It's not just a single use piece of equipment. And the maximum weight limit for the user on it is 100 kilograms, which equates, I think, to about 16 stone.
So really, we're kind of going back to our clinical expertise and our sort of the reason we did this. We know that after about 50, muscle size and strength really does start to decrease. And that results therefore in loss of muscle power necessary for activities of daily living. So if we think about some of our service users that are out there in community, quite a lot of their time is sat fairly sedentary. And so what we know is that targeted functional activity and strengthening does reduce the risk of deconditioning, so that deconditioning means that legs are not going to get wobbly and weak, and people aren't going to be able to stand up. So it fits in really nicely with the physical activity guidelines in the Chief Medical Officer's report of 2019. But I think really importantly, like Rachel's already alluded to, is that Balance Active enables service users to actively take part in normal daily functional activities. We're not, again, coming from our clinical experience, quite often people who needed some support to do things in an upright position were using perch stools, or they were doing things sat down and things brought to them in a sitting position, both of which sadly do exacerbate that potential for deconditioning. And so really, not only are we getting people to actively stand, which is great for them and reduces the risk of deconditioning, but it does mean that you've got opportunities for single-handed practice, which is incredibly person-centred, much more dignified, and ensures that staff capacity is used effectively. And I think it's well worth, for those of you who haven't had a look, having a glance at Philip Nelson and Richardson's It Takes Two, exploring the manual handling myth. Really, using equipment and thinking differently can mean that we can take some hands out of services and then put them where they really are needed, but while optimising people's functional opportunities to keep independent. So that's a very quick précis of why we need it, which leads on next to
the Chief Medical Officer's advice on physical activity and exercise, particularly for older adults. And I think what we've found and seen is that Balance Active really fits with three of these in particular. And the key here is building strength. There's now lots and lots of evidence that as people get older, they really need to do strengthening. And the advice is on 2 days a week. which is really important. But alongside that, minimise sedentary time, so minimise the time people are sat down. And then the third component that Balance Active obviously is going to really focus on is improving balance. So those three main components of the Chief Medical Officer's advice, Balance Active can really help to target, really importantly. And as it says on there, every minute counts and it's never too late to start. So some activity is good, more is better. And that's what Balance Active is really focusing on doing. So that's another reason why we need it.
So basically, how does it help? And I think sort of really importantly, thinking about how much more closely we're starting to link across health and social care is that, you know, keeping people moving is everybody's business. And so when we first started, and like Rachel said, we've got tons of experience working in community, you know, we've got to start to think about everybody sharing the responsibility of keeping people active. And so by having some equipment that provides forward knee support, this helps people into a normal standing position so that people's body weight are actually over the feet and gives them that confidence to stand up. The people who are using it have got to actively recruit the postural muscles and the leg muscles. So it's not that they're just perched onto something or hanging onto something. They are actually using their muscles against gravity to stabilise themselves. And that then means that they can use their upper limbs for functional activity. And you've not got that need for staff to block the knee. If we're thinking about some of the precarious manual handling situations that people can find themselves in, trying to get someone into standing by blocking the knees, that takes that away. And so really, really helpful in minimising risk of manual handling risk to carers and staff, but optimising opportunities to stand up for service users, which they wouldn't have had without Balance Active.
Confidence.
And absolutely, and that confidence, as Rachel's just saying, is really, really important. People are frightened when they've not done it for a while, so this does help.
So we're going to play you a short video now, just showing how simple Balance Active is to put together.
Okay, so now Rachel's going to show you what's in the box. So that's the base plate, the non-slip base plate. You can see the carrying bag there, so it's easy for one person to manage to transport. It fits in a car. We do know some people have even had it on buses. So these are the legs. You'll see that there's a little clip mechanism on there that you'll be familiar with from walking aids. And these literally just clip into the base plate as like so. You'll also notice that on the end of the feet, the extending legs rather, there are some little rubber feet, and that helps again give another anti-slip surface and takes any wobble factor out of things too. So once you've got your four legs in, then you can start to pop the uprights in. You'll see again these have got a similar mechanism to the feet in that they're just a pin operated device. And they literally attach into the base like so. You'll also notice on there that they've got holes up the length of them, and that's so that the knee block can be adjusted for different sizes of people. Now, the adjustment specifications are on the general population, so they will go to quite small people up to really quite tall people. We haven't had this tested yet with children, but there has been interest from paediatrics, and so that's something that we'll be keeping you up to date with. But actually, for fairly tall kids, it does work. It just means that you've got to take that extra precaution in terms of your assessment. So you'll see that those fasten into the uprights with a peg, and it's a pretty straightforward procedure. So there's your knee block, and then just to top it off, you've got your light touch handrails here. And like we said last week, if you remember, these are designed literally for light touch and not as a weight bearing surface. It just gives service users a little bit more confidence when they're on the apparatus in terms of another surface. And there you can see Rachel's on it now and giving you a demonstration of the right setting for her, but also look how far she can actually go. Literally, it's not going to tip. So in the bag as well, there are some user instructions, okay, which we'd want you to always be familiar with before.
And the all-important CE mark. So that's just showing how easy Balance Active actually is and how relatively quickly that can be put together. And you could also say how stable that was when somebody was on it. There was no way that my knees could give way and let me fall there.
And so I think the thing, again, like Rachel's just said, the potential uses of Balance Active, therefore, because it is so portable, easy to clean, and can be used at every stage of a service user's pathway, it means it can follow service users from acute settings into intermediate care and eventually the person's own home, which may be their house of residence or care or nursing accommodation. And again, it's thinking about how we can reduce handoffs of people, make sure that people are getting the optimum opportunities for rehabilitation, which goes nicely into the active rehabilitation sentence there. So older people, people with stroke, neurological conditions, deconditioning from cancer, after orthopedics, for instance, hip and knee replacements, or certainly fractured neck of femur has been a fantastic arena for us to use Balance Active. Where strength and balance need improving, it's a brilliant piece of kit to put in and do the doing with. That said, we recognise that some people we are going to want to undertake or only be able to undertake functional activities with some adaptation, but we're really passionate to make sure that adaptation is active so that people can keep the optimal function with an adaptive piece of kit in when they're doing some of their activities of daily living. So, for example, washing and dressing, kitchen tasks. And I think it's worth mentioning at this point, when you are using it in that particular context, the front legs can come off and you can take the upright, the little light touch handles off and put that against up to a work surface. So the preparation of vegetables and so on at a sink, which we'll talk to you a little bit about in a case study later on, you can actually take those legs off so that you've got more opportunity to put it up to another surface. And really importantly, active self-management. Most people with a long-term condition really do want to be able to manage themselves. And so this is a brilliant piece of kit that, again, can go with service users, so on into holidays, into other people's homes, so that they've got an opportunity to be able to still get themselves into a standing position that's incredibly important, and not just be stuck at home where they've, basically might have a standing frame or something that's not active. So really, the benefits of Balance Active there in those three settings are ultimately reducing care packages, which then creates capacity in the system for people who need them, reduces the need for double-handed visits, again, optimising that use of really scarce staff, but really importantly, that improved function, independence, and improved quality of life for service users. We've got to give everybody the best chance. The more that we can keep people on their feet, the less dependency there'll be, the happier they'll be, the more resources can be used for people that really need it. So those are some of the balance benefits.
Okay, so we've got some real world stories now of how Balance Active has been used. So we've got a little series of case studies just to talk you through. So this first case study is about a lady who was 89-year-old lady, actually, who got dementia. And she actually lived in a residential home. And she was just about mobile with one stick, but she was quite unsteady, quite stooped, and the staff were really concerned about her in terms of her risk of falling. So they were worried she was going to fall. But because it was COVID-19, all visits to the care homes and residential homes had stopped, so they couldn't access physiotherapy and occupational therapy visits. And so some of the registered nurses had been trained to utilise Balance Active. And so they assessed this lady and developed a really functional plan, doing normal functional activities, but utilising Balance Active to really give her the confidence and enable her to actively stand rather than do these things in sitting. And so they got her doing normal everyday tasks in standing. And so there's a lovely photo of her. She liked to help in the kitchen and help at the dining table, and she was just folding the napkins there, ready for the meal. And she really enjoyed doing these normal functional daily activities. But what they actually found, because she was doing this in standing and she was recruiting all her trunk muscles and her leg muscles, is that her posture improved, so she wasn't really stooped anymore, and that her standing tolerance improved, so she could actually stand for longer. And some of the staff comments, which are really lovely at the bottom, is they said she really loves doing these functional activities, the purposeful, normal activities. And she'd actually started laughing while she was doing it. So, you know, this lady's mood had improved. And the staff felt that they were no longer having to tell her to sit down, don't walk about, with frightened you'll fall. So they found it had definitely helped her. And their comment, particularly through COVID, is that without that piece of equipment, without Balance Active as this piece of equipment to help her stand, she wouldn't have had any therapeutic intervention. And I think the other thing that's not written in that comment is this lady's son couldn't believe the difference in his mum in terms of the way she was stood and walking. So that was just one really heartwarming case study about that lady.
And so then this leads us on to another lady, and this lady was actually living in her own home, and she presented with reduced mobility and balance problems, and she'd had some falls in the past, and she used furniture indoors and a four-wheeled walker outdoors. And she did have quite a complicated medical history insofar as she'd got spinal stenosis, so that meant she'd got pain, she'd got bronchiectasis, so she had some problems with repeated chest infections. And she'd got a kyphoscoliosis, which meant she was bending over, and she really was quite flexed, quite stooped, and quite breathless when we first met her. She lived with her husband in a ground floor flat, and she steadied herself with her arms to prepare food, wash, and dress. So she was still managing, but only just. She couldn't manage to transport items from the kitchen, so she was kind of unconsciously accommodating a loss of balance, which made her feel like she was getting old and troubled her. So she agreed to try it, which we think again is putting the patient at the middle of something, or the service user. Traditionally, what potentially could have happened there is care would have gone in, done the cup of teas, done the meals, sat her down, and that would have been at the end of her. And so basically, Balance Active was put in so she could start to do some activities in the kitchen, washing and dressing. So if we look at the difference before and after, before she was using Balance Active, she couldn't walk unaided, she couldn't walk and carry, she was 5 out of 10 insofar as fear of falling, and so that's like a scale saying naught's not scared at all, 10's terrified. So she was pretty scared, and we know that fear of falling is a risk factor for falling, so that is important. And she had pain from a flex posture, and taking up to 6 paracetamol a day. So she was, she'd got some really serious issues. Afterwards, though, she was walking independently. She could walk and carry. A fear of falling had reduced from 5 to 2, which is, really important. And again, the pain had reduced. So 2 paracetamol alternate days. But I think, again, going back to what the service user said, this is life-changing. My walking outside's improved, so I can go out all over the place now, and I've had fewer chest infections. So these are our service users that at the moment we're missing. And in social services and in health, we've got such an opportunity by putting some low-tech solutions in and some simple interventions to keep people on the feet, keep them safe, keep them at home, and keep them having fun. So really important, and life-changing. What can we say? So next one. This might make you cry.
So this third example was a lovely gentleman. Now, he was 98 years old, and he was actually in a nursing home. And therefore needing quite a lot of care. So before using Balance Active, the staff used to leave him in sitting, and they'd bring a bowl to him so that he could try and wash his hands and his face and things at his bedside. And what he really wanted to do was to be able to go to a sink, as he used to do, stand up, see himself in the mirror and wash his own face and hands at a sink, which he considered that was normal. That's what he wanted to be able to do. Now, obviously, he needed quite a lot of help, this gentleman. So we worked with the manual handling coordinator in that nursing home to look at, how can we transfer him onto the Balance Active and make sure we can get that safe. And so what was agreed is we took the front legs off the Balance Active so we could push it right up against the sink, so there was safety there. And he used the manual handling belt, or the staff used manual handling belt to assist him, but it was wheeled to the Balance Active. And that wheelchair was positioned so he could get his feet in the right position on the Balance Active, and then he was assisted up into standing by the staff. Now, any transfers with him before, staff either hoisted him or there were 2 or 3 staff actually having to help him with this manual handling belt. So they managed to do this, I think, with 1 member of staff actually, to get that wheelchair wheeled up, get his feet positioned and help him up into standing. And he was able to give some assistance. But once he got up into standing and he realised that this knee block was there, and there's no way his knees could give way and fall, he really started to try and extend himself. And you could see him, and actually as physios we could feel that he was using his postural muscles at his back, he was using the postural muscles around his hips, and he was really actively doing the best he could do to stand. But what was really lovely about this is, by using the balance active, and because that gave him that knee support at the front, he was able to then use his upper limbs normally, so he could actually wash his hands and his face, and he actually managed to look at himself in the mirror. So it really gave him, it helped him achieve a goal that he wanted to achieve, but it made sure his care was much more personalised. It was doing something normal and that he wanted to do, but it was much more dignified for this gentleman who was needing quite a lot of care. So that was lovely. It had everyone in tears, didn't it, in the care home when he achieved it.
He used to be a model for knitting wool patterns, and he said, "Oh, I'm a model again." So just fantastic.
So it's about putting the service user first, really, and helping them achieve some of the things they really, really want to achieve.
But if you look at that posture, we're thinking about sort of care settings. If you imagine personal cares for washing, if you're assisting someone to wash and dress, rather than trying to fertle under jammers or keep somebody upright and 2 people, in that position, you can actually get someone properly washed, dignified, dry, pads on, and they're not grabbing and pulling at you or the carers pulling and grabbing at them.
And they're involved in it.
Absolutely. So although that's not actually what's happening in this situation, you can see that position would allow that to be the case, which is obviously incredibly important towards, as Rachel says, that personalisation and dignity.
Yeah.